Hey Canucks fans, welcome to the line change. And my lights aren't on. There we go. Welcome to the line change. And in this video, we're going to be going over a question that is posed on Canucks Army in an article, and it really makes you wonder if, unknowingly, because it hasn't really been talked about at least lately. Perhaps it's gotten a little overshadowed by, the topics of, Elias Pettersson, Filipino, the whole 2C conversation. Perhaps it's gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit, but perhaps it's not. I guess it depends on who you ask. But could possibly the Canucks have a goalie dilemma, going into the season? This article on Canucks Army, it basically asks, how should the Canucks split up Demko and Lankinen starts? Obviously the Canucks are going to want to keep Demko healthy. Obviously, from what we've heard, which is not a whole lot from Demko himself, he's been actually fairly quiet ever since before he even signed his new extension. We haven't heard a peep from Demko at all. Demko has not spoken to the media. He's not, spoken or said anything. Perhaps that could change, within the next few days, or most likely at training camp. He'll probably finally make himself available to speak to. Obviously, he's healthy going into the season, according to the Canucks, and they're obviously going to want to keep him healthy. They want him to stay healthy. So in order to do that, they're going to want to rest him and not overplay him, which is something that they most certainly did both last year and the year before that. They overplayed him, and it resulted in him getting injured. Of course, they did the same thing with Lankinen last year too, and he ended up not necessarily getting injured, but he ended up, his performance suffered because of it. So obviously the Canucks are gonna want to split it evenly, perhaps, and make sure neither gets injured or gets overworked, pretty much. So we're gonna go over that. But before I do, as I always do, real quick, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible, amazing, artwork you see there behind me, and you guys can check them out yourselves at gassjackart.com. Also on Instagram at gassjackart. There's a link to his website in the description down below. So let's actually take a look at this article. As I mentioned, written by our friends at Canucks Army, in particular, once again, by our good friend David Quadrelli. And he goes on to say, it's been a topic of conversation for the past few Canucks seasons, and for good reason. How should the Canucks manage Thatcher Demko's workload? Unlike in past seasons, however, the Canucks have two goaltenders who would be bona fide number one starters on some other teams around the league. Naturally, that makes this season's edition of How Should the Canucks Manage Thatcher Demko's Workload far more interesting. Now, he goes on to talk about Demko's health. By now, you know all about Demko's recent injury history. In case you forgot, he has a excerpt from a brief reminder courtesy of In Goal Magazine's Kevin Woodley, who appeared on a recent episode of Canucks Conversation, where he ended up saying, you look at his first year as a starter, 64 games, gets injured late in the season, plays through it for a while until they're clearly no longer in the playoffs, then they shut him down. 64 games is his career high. He needed surgery that offseason. He comes off the knee surgery in the offseason. There's nobody from staff on hand for his first skates, so he goes like a bat out of hell trying to get ready for the start of the season with nobody monitoring it or limiting reps. He comes back and he already has a compensatory hitch to his movement by the time the season starts that nobody spots. He was narrowing his butterfly as he drops to protect the knee, which led to the groin injury. That season was cut short because he wasn't healthy in the summer. He gets through a heavy workload, ends up hurt at the end, comes back the next year and gets hurt in part because he never fully recovered from that, so he gets hurt again. Has a year where he's off and on, then went into the next season healthy because he used the break with the groin injury to change his training and has a great offseason like he is reportedly having this offseason. So if you step back and look at it, when he has a healthy summer, he has a good season where he plays a lot of games. When he finishes the year not healthy and has to rehab in the summer, not doing his regular work, that's where he runs into trouble during the season. So in terms of that pattern, it all sets up to be a good season this year. Now, obviously, for those of you that don't know, Kevin Willie is a goaltender himself, so he really knows what Demko is going through, not necessarily maybe injury-wise, but he has a good idea of, how Demko feels and, being a goaltender. What does all this mean? Nearly everyone can agree by now that the Canucks need to limit Demko's workload, at least to some extent, while the club clearly believes in his new preventive training methods, so much so that they signed him to a 3-year extension this offseason. The fact remains that Demko's inability to stay healthy has hurt the club in recent years. For the Canucks to be great, they need a healthy and also great Demko behind them. Now, it's not quite as simple as saying, great, give him half the starts, and Kevin Lankinen the other half, although it might be. Demko seems to be a goaltender who plays best when he can get into a groove, and when he struggled to get into a groove last season, thanks to multiple injuries we should mention, the results weren't there. The risk with limiting Demko starts too much is that he struggles to find the level to his game that we've seen him reach before. When he finished as the runner-up to the Vezina Trophy in 23-24, he appeared in 51 games, but of course he suffered a knee injury that kept him out of the playoffs, and that's when the Canucks could have really used some Vezina caliber goaltending. Make no mistake about it, there is a sweet spot. Sure, it's likely not 41 games for Demko and 41 for Lankinen, but with the condensed nature of the 25-26 schedule, thanks to the Olympic break, it might end up being closer to that than you think. Let's take a look at the Lankinen factor now. Now, obviously, this isn't the story only about Thatcher Demko. The Canucks are also paying a good chunk of money to Kevin Lankinen next season after he proved himself to be a capable goaltender on his 1-year show-me deal, with the Canucks signing him to a 5-year extension. Lankinen was at times stellar for the Canucks last season, particularly at the start of the season when he was routinely stealing them games. Lankinen's level of play, both by the eye test and the numbers, began to dwindle later in the season, with March being his worst month in terms of save percentage, with a measly .868 to his name. Lankinen started 49 games for the Canucks last season, and his play through 34 starts before March was more than good enough. That would suggest that by limiting Demko's starts in an effort to keep him healthy, the Canucks will also get the best version of Kevin Lankinen. So how many starts does that equate to? At the very least, Lankinen should get every one of the back-to-backs on the Canucks' schedule, which would mean he gets at least 13. From there are all sorts of opportunities for the Canucks to rotate between the two goaltenders, as the business of this year's schedule almost demands that teams have two really good goaltenders. And with a healthy Demko and a non-overworked Kevin Lankinen, the Canucks might find themselves with some of the best goaltending in the league when all is said and done. Let's take a look at what the perfect split would be. If we apply the absolute airtight logic that Lankinen is great until he reaches 35 starts, that Demko doesn't get hurt until he reaches 50 games, that's sarcasm, then it would seem the perfect workload split for the Canucks' crease sees Demko log 40 to 45 games, and Lankinen pick up the other 37 to 42. Could it be more like 49 for Demko and 33 for Lankinen? Of course, but what it shouldn't be is 55 or more for Demko and 27 or fewer for Lankinen. The Canucks have two great goaltenders, and using them both consistently should bring out the absolute best from both of them. So that is the article, which is great read. Great job, Quads. Absolutely love it. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you guys think this is a goalie dilemma for the Canucks? Is this something they should be, concerned about, or really thinking about and really looking into? Or do you think they they've already figured it out. They already have a plan. And do you guys agree with the, what was it, 40 to 45 games for Demko and Lankinen picking up the other 37 to 42? Do you guys like that? Or do you guys think it should be more like 49 for Demko and 33 for Lankinen? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Also Blue Sky, which is not listed, but Blue Sky is at the line change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. And if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated and really helps out the podcast on Spotify. But that's going to do it for me. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.